So a couple months ago, I was approached by Matt, my rep, about just talking about my experience recruiting beginners in a pandemic. And so I don't feel like I did anything really revolutionary or, that different. However, there were a few things that I tweaked to make sure that what we were doing was safe for the kids. And so, I'll just kind of talk you through what I did. And if you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat or shoot me an email afterwards. So our students were in the hybrid model when we started the school, and that actually lent itself surprisingly well to testing in small groups. We have about 20 to 23 kids per class. And so being in hybrid, it was right around 10 to 12 students per class. So I pulled the kids in groups of 10, and we had about 20 minutes to test. We tested on the very first day of school because they were only going to be at school for 2 days that week. And so the group A kids tested on Monday and the group B tested on Thursday. If there were any kids that were not at school or didn't get tested for some reason, they were tested on Tuesday and Friday. Fully face-to-face, I feel like this could work basically the same way that it worked this year. Fully virtual, I do have students that were able to do instrument testing. The first thing that I did before school started was I wrote up in detail what we were going to be doing for testing, because I wanted to make sure that parents and students felt comfortable. And this was, everybody wasn't really sure how or if instrument testing was going to happen this fall. And so I think that made parents feel a lot better. And there was also the option to just completely opt out of testing if you were not comfortable. So, like I said, we had about 10 students at a time because we had 10 testing kits, and we only tested students outside. So we took all the kids outside. I think I've joked with Matt that I think one of the reasons why I was so successful was because I was their very first mask break. And so it was the first opportunity that the students had to get out of the classroom and take their mask off. And at that point, it was a really big deal to be able to take your mask off. And so they were really excited about that. So we went out, we spread out. We had the Jupiter testing kits were distributed at their station. And then we just went through each mouthpiece individually. So I had kind of my order that I would go. And I did not actually use I didn't use the box that the test kits came in. That was a huge time saver for me. It took me 2 groups to realize that I should not ask the kids to put the mouthpieces back in the box because A, they were not putting them back in there correctly, and B, they were just, it was a mess. So trying to collect everything. So like I said, I sent my virtual kids actually got a virtual testing kit. So I have a link on my slide. If you hadn't heard about that, there's a company that's doing virtual kits. Pretty much all you have to do is send them your name and your email and address and everything, and they send you a kit for free. And then they actually include a return shipping label so that you can return it back as soon as you're done. So I thought that was really cool. And I had some remote learners that took advantage of that so that they could still start band this year. And if you haven't seen the Jupiter kit, this is what comes in it. I thought it worked decently well. Audrey, I don't know if you guys use the same thing. I know some people didn't like certain parts of it, like the flute head joint. I did find that it was very difficult to make a sound on the flute head joint, even for me, and I didn't have a lot of kids successfully make a sound on a flute head joint. So I kind of toyed with the idea of just getting 10 real flute head joints next year, so that I don't have to use those. But ironically, it was probably the worst testing that I've had for flute, and I ended up with double as many flutes as I usually would have. So I can't explain that to you, but I have an entire class of flutes this year. So whatever works. So the crazy part for me, can you guys see the whole slide? Are you seeing my little, okay. The crazy part for me was what I called sanitation insanity, because it was cleaning everything every time somebody touched it in between each group. So I ended up with about 12 groups of kids to test, which doesn't sound like a ton, but when you have 10 testing kits and there's all of those pieces in each kit, it's a lot of things to clean. So I got it down to about a 10 to 15 minute time in between groups where I could sanitize everything. And this was kind of my process. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but I hadn't really thought about step one until I walked into the lounge and saw the sink. and then it was like, yeah, you really do have to clean everything. So between every group, this is kind of what I did. And it got a lot faster, and I thought it worked really well, and nobody got sick. So I guess that's the ultimate goal. So this is kind of how what I felt made this successful. All my kids were still tested and recruited within the first week of school. And I could not believe that actually happened. When I was working through a testing schedule with my administration, we thought it was going to take maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get it all done. And it really came down to my administrator and my 5th grade team just being super, super flexible with time. They totally understood that we wanted to get it done. My administrator and I were a little concerned that we wouldn't be in school that long this fall. And so we really wanted to get it done just in case the kids got sent home again. So it was a little crazy. I will definitely do it again the way that I did it. But the other part was having the flexibility from my middle school administration to basically spend my entire first week of school doing this. So because I do teach 4 grades, and so being able to not be at the middle school so that I could just be spending my time with the beginners. But this is how our timeline kind of worked out, and I was so thrilled with just how quickly we got everything going this year. I don't want to say I was in a hurry, but like I said, I was a little nervous that school would get shut down and we wouldn't have gotten started enough to get started virtually, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then some changes that I'll be making, or I guess things that I've learned from this, is, first of all, I love seeing the kids in small groups. And I know some people have done it that way, and usually we take the kids out of their general music time, and so we see a whole class of kids, like 20 some kids at a time, and I always have to bring in help, and we get it done, but it's also still a little crazy, and I feel like I don't get to know the kids as well during the testing as I did this year. So it was really nice to see small groups of kids and kind of start learning names and building relationships right away. In the past, another thing I've done is I've always treated it as testing and not trying out. And I know I'm still calling it testing, though I'm thinking of it in my head as more of just making, trying out sounds. But I've always documented like how it went and which instrument I thought the kid should do. And not that I think that's a bad thing, but this year it was much more focused on what you successfully make a sound on, which sound did you like, and just giving the kids a little more freedom that way. And I have had nobody switch instruments, which is just crazy for me. I feel like I usually document how it went and I try to kind of steer them towards a certain instrument, and I didn't do that. And I don't have very many kids that are really struggling a whole lot, and they seem to be happy with where they're at. So I think that was a win too. I will always and forever do a recorded beginner night. This has been like the biggest takeaway for me. I feel like I do beginner night every year, and a ton of parents miss it because they have football or softball or whatever event is happening, and we can just never avoid all of the after school events. And so I end up with so many emails asking what was covered at beginner night, and there was just so much less of that. We recorded the meeting, we sent out the Zoom meeting, and then sent a follow-up letter too. And so it was just everybody kind of just did their Google form, signed up, and ordered their instrument, and they knew what they needed, and it was super, super smooth. So I will 100% be using a Google sign up and recording my beginner meeting forever and ever. We have done spring testing also the last few years, and this year we were obviously forced to do it in the fall. I was really apprehensive about it because I was really nervous about how long the turnaround would be to get instruments, and it was so fast. So I also, Matt's always kind of tried to get me to do fall, and I've been too nervous that the turnaround would be too slow. And so we tried it, and now I don't think I can go back, because it just, everything happened so fast that I don't think people had time to question. It was just either a yes or a no, either I'm joining or I'm not. I don't have a lot of time to, look for an instrument on Amazon and and get a purple flute. So everything just went a lot smoother. The kids are on good horns, and I'm really happy with how the fall testing went.
Hey, Brittany, just a quick question that popped in the chat here. Can you share with us, like, what was your retention rate from last year to this year in 2020?
Like in my 6th through 8th grade?
I think just for your beginners, the number of.
Oh, okay. Beginners from last year?
Yeah, from like 2019 to 2020.
Okay. Honestly, this is the worst retention I have ever had.
Sure.
I will say that and try not to be embarrassed about it, because I think that everybody's kind of in the same boat, but probably about 65 or 70%, which is
That's great.
Yeah,
No, that's great, because
not very
the
good for
average.
me.
No. The average, I mean, even across our nation, I mean, like, people are seeing 50% decline. So, like, have somewhere in the, high 60s, 70s, good for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's always really disappointing to lose kids, I guess. And especially kids that should be there. This year has just been so different because there's different reasons this year. I'm not at school, or my parents don't feel like band is safe. Our choir numbers are also down way less than usual, and it's, people have concerns, and I totally get it. And then you do just have the kids too that wanted to try it out, and it just wasn't for them. But yeah, all of those things mixed together has made it for sure a difficult year of retention.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brittany. And if anyone has any questions, just go ahead and pop them in the chat.